going to be running for about 2 hours. And just very briefly, I would like to read out the agenda. We would have an introduction by the SDSN Youth Nigeria Coordinator and person of Mr. Mutiu Hambali. We'll have that for about 10 minutes. And then we'll have the first presentation for 30 minutes by Dr. Demola Akinwade, who is an associate professor at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at Afewa Balola University, Ekiti State, Nigeria. We would then have Barrister Olufunke Aje Gomogun for another 30 minutes. She's a doctoral candidate at the Faculty of Law in the University of Ibadan. We would also have a 40-minute question and answer session that's going to be handled by Mr. Bulu Olaomo. And then we'll have a wrap-up section for another 8 minutes. And so I'd like to set the ball rolling by having on board the SDSN Youth Nigeria Coordinator, Mr. Mutiu Hambali, speak. So it's my pleasure to invite the coordinator, Mr. Mutiu Hambali. Please kindly help us introduce the meeting. Thank you once again. Over to you. Mr. Hambali, can you hear me? You are unmuted. Maybe you need to unmute yourself so that you could speak. Yeah, I see. Oh, okay. You are not unmuted, so you can go ahead and do the introduction. Are you there? Mr. Hambali, are you speaking? We seem not to hear you.
Yeah, me neither. I'm not hearing. Let's see.
Mr. Hambali, are you there? Mr. Hambali, are you there? So that we don't take too much of our time, I would just like to do the introduction. So essentially, this webinar is captioned Youth, Peace, and SDGs, Reorienting Youth on Peace Building as a tool for achieving the SDGs in Nigeria. Essentially, the webinar is geared at promoting conversations such as adoption of youth as peace vanguards within the context of localizing the SDGs in Nigeria, among other initiatives. So we know that there's been widespread violence, especially in certain parts of Nigeria, especially in the Northeast. But then it's not just in those areas. There are other pockets of violence across the country. So we have militant, we have, kidnapping, we have now gender-based violence, especially the cases have risen because of COVID. So more people have had to stay indoors because during the lockdown period. And we've had reported cases of rape. In fact, so in some unfortunate cases leading to death. In the southern part of the country, it used to be thought that it was domiciled in the northern part of the country because of the conservative nature and culture there. But now we've seen that it's a widespread phenomenon. There may be different contexts, however, but the summary of what we are saying is it appears we are seeing conflicts at unprecedented levels. And because the bulk of the demography of the country, I mean the population, appears to be youths, they are well poised to contribute to peace building. And that informs why a program of this nature is taking place in commemoration of the International Youth Day. I think Mr. Mbali has come on. Maybe he could just go ahead and say a few things about the remaining things that we have to do. I've earlier made mention of our speakers. We have Dr. Dimola Kingladi from Afeabalola University, and then we have Barrister Olufunke Ajegbomogun from Faculty of Law, University of Ibadan. I'm not sure if Dr. Dimola is online right now. If he is not online, then maybe we just may want to invite Barrister Ajegbomogun to speak so that we don't keep others waiting. So Barrister Olufunke Ajegbomogun, can you go ahead to have your presentation, please? You need to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, good morning to us. Good morning to every one of us. I would like to, I can't see myself, so I don't know why that is, because I'm trying to turn on my video and it's saying that the host has disabled it.
Okay, I've just spoken to the host right now, and I requested that he should help us to allow you to share your video. Probably your screen.
I'm trying to get it sorted. Yeah.
So he's trying to get that sorted, but while he does that, you could just go ahead and speak. But by the way, do you have a PowerPoint presentation?
I actually don't have the PowerPoint presentation, so I'll just be going directly to the topic that I've been given. I don't know if
I believe in the course. I believe in the course of, that's fine. In the course of the presentation, the video will be enabled. He's working on that right now, so you could just go ahead and have the presentation. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much. As earlier said by the facilitator, my name is Olufunke Ajegbomogun. Let me start by appreciating. Hope you can hear me. Can you hear me clearly?
You are audible, very audible. We can hear you very well.
Let me start by appreciating the organization, the organizing team of this webinar for inviting me as a guest speaker. And I'll be addressing the topic that says transforming wrongly channeled energy among youths into boundless opportunities for rapid nationwide development. Let me start by saying that we cannot hope for sustainable development without peace, stability, and good governance that is based on the rule of law. And when we observe the Nigerian population, we discovered that the Nigerian population is made up of about 70% youth. And if we hope for a sustainable development, we must be able to harness the potentiality as well as the energy that is contained in these youth towards development. According to the United Nations, they classified youth to be people that fall within the age range of 15 to 24. The Nigerian National Youth Policy of 2009 also categorized youth to be people that fall within the age range of 18 to 35, while the African Youth Charter of 2006 classified youth to be those that fall within the age range of 15 to 35. The truth of the matter is the word youth is synonymous with energy, enthusiasm, ambition, vigor, creativity, strength, progressive mindsets, explorative spirit, and hope. And I know if I ask some of us here, we would also be able to mention some other attributes of youth. But let me stress that when we talk about youth, it is not necessarily a function of age alone. And some have argued that being a youth is not necessarily a function of age, but is more of having the mindset of a youth and having this attribute that I've mentioned. And therefore, if you don't fall within that age category, you are still very much welcome. So, like I said, the Nigerian youths as believed by so many, they are known to be the future leaders of tomorrow. But for the purpose of this presentation, I'll still be talking about youth as regards, I'll be talking about youth based on the definitions given by the law, particularly given by the Nigerian National Youth Policy of 2009. So the Nigerian youth are future leaders of tomorrow, and I make bold to also say that show me the youth of a nation, and I'll tell you what the possibility. I'll tell you what the future of that nation possibly looks like. When we talk about transforming wrongly channeled energy amongst Nigerian youth, it presupposes an intentional act on the part of the youth as well as the relevant stakeholders in redirecting and guiding the potentials and energy contained in these youth towards a productive and development-oriented outcome. To achieve, in order for us to be able to achieve this, we must first and foremost examine vices that is common or that is prevalent among the Nigerian youths. And I would like to mention a few of them. We have bribery and corruption, cyber fraud, also known as Yahoo Yahoo. We have cultism, prostitution, and human trafficking. Let me say that I'll be emphasizing more on armed conflicts, which is also very relevant to the theme of this webinar. When we look at armed conflicts is now very rampant in the Nigerian terrain, with the prevalence of Boko Haram in the northeast, kidnapping in the southwest, and oil pipe vandalization in the south-south. It has become obvious to us that the Nigerian government needs to address this issue as fast as possible. Before addressing how we can channel this energy, let me also address another important aspect of this presentation, which is we must also know the triggers. What are those things? What are the root causes of violence or of all these vices that I mentioned? What are those things that trigger violence in the Nigerian youth? The first one on my list is poverty. You know, when there is an unequal distribution of resources in the society, you know, when we have some that are rich and some are very poor, when youth that fall within that category of the poor youth, when they are offered attractive, should I say attractive prospects, which could actually be criminal in nature, the tendency for them to yield to such temptations is very high. If they don't have, if they are offered such, if they are asked to engage in criminality, and then you offer them a high exchange, that temptation is very high for the Nigerian youth. Also, bad modeling is another vice, is another root cause of these vices in the Nigerian youth. When I talk about bad modeling, I mean when situations where we have our leaders, people that we are supposed to look forward to, you know, when they are showcasing their wealth on social media platforms, displaying their cars, their Rolls Royces, their mansions, and then, you know, the Nigerian youth is tempted to want to live that kind of life, and he's ready to do all that he can do, all that is within his means to also acquire that kind of lifestyle. Also, another root cause of violence or vices among the Nigerian youth is the non-inclusion of the Nigerian youth in politics and other spheres of influence. You know, the average Nigerian feels, oh, Nigerian youth, they are known for violence, and then what do they have to offer? They don't really, how can you ask them to come and engage in politics? What do they are not ready for leadership. That's the way some of our leaders think. And so as a result of that, they don't include them in politics and other spheres of influence. So by so doing, some of these youths, they feel, oh, if I cannot be relevant in this field, then they can as well look for other areas. Another one is a sense of injustice and lack of faith in established institutions, a sense of injustice and lack of faith in established institutions. Many of our Nigerian youth, or many people, not even the Nigerian youth alone now, a lot of people have lost faith in established institutions, including the Nigerian youth. An example of
Sorry
this
to
is received.
interrupt. If I can just tell you, you can now turn on your camera.
Oh, thank you. As I was saying earlier, another one is a sense of injustice and lack of faith in established institutions. And that is quite visible in this common act among the youth, known as jungle justice. An alleged suspect, an alleged criminal is caught, or maybe a suspect, and then the next thing we see is that the youth or those around, they want to set the person ablaze because they feel if such an individual is handed over to the authorities, like maybe the police, for instance, such a person can bribe his way out, is because they have lost faith. They have lost faith. They have lost confidence in some of these established institutions, such as the criminal justice system, the police, like e.g. the police, the court system, and so on. So this is also another reason why many of these people engage in criminality. Also, let me also add that when there is no effective forum for dialogue amongst the youth, it could also contribute to the increase in vices or in armed conflicts. What do I mean by this? The Nigerian youth, a lot of them are grieved by so many things, and if they don't have that platform for them to be able to express their grievances, they might find alternatives. If they don't have that platform for dialogue, they might find alternatives to express themselves, which would include resorting to violence and all that. Now, and that is why it is necessary that policymakers, when they are making all these laws, they should engage and involve the youth. If you are making laws that are laws that concern the youth, for instance, ensure that you engage these youth and make them a part of the policy making process. Let them come to the table. Let them all own the table. Don't just come and invite them and not make them relevant. Allow them to own the table and let them express themselves and let you know what areas let them know the areas. Let them be able to express areas that are really affecting them as youth. Now, let me go to the crux of the matter, which is actually the heartbeat of this discussion. We are looking at how we can actually transform the energy that is contained in our youth, how we can transform this energy into boundless opportunities for nationwide development. The first point I have here is youth empowerment. The word youth empowerment is very common. We have heard it severally, and then we tend to think maybe it has been overflogged. But the truth of the matter is youth empowerment cannot be overemphasized. When we talk about youth empowerment, it entails an attitudinal, structural, and cultural process whereby youth are given the ability to make decisions and implement changes in their lives and in their society. If our intention is to engage this youth productively, then we must be able to provide opportunities that will ensure that they are gainfully employed. Now, an example of this in Nigeria is the popular Hand Power. Hand Power is an initiative that came into being under the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari in 2016. The aim of this initiative was to engage youth within the age of 18 to 35, which are also known as in the, like I earlier said about the Nigerian National Youth Policy of 2019, of 2009, sorry, that these are the people that fall within that age category, that they are the ones that are known as youth. So the essence of this end was to engage them, and by providing jobs, for them, by ensuring that they are engaged in paid employment. And the good thing about this initiative is that it just did not address the graduates. Even the non-graduates are included in the scheme. in sectors such as they are engaged in sectors such as agriculture, health, teaching, and what have you, and some other ones as well. Now, take agriculture for instance. Agriculture is an aspect that, as some aspect of agriculture, you don't even require a formal education to be able to participate. All you need the basic skills, the basic knowledge, and then you need your tools, and then you are good to go. So I believe if we can create similar models like Power, if Nigerian government can partner with businesses and the private sector and create similar models such as Power, it will go a long way in engaging the Nigerian youth positively. The second point I have here is small and medium enterprises, also known as SMEs. Now, according to a survey that was done by PricewaterhouseCoopers, it was discovered that in Nigeria, SMEs contribute about 48% of national GDP. Also the backbone of major developed economies, as well as important contributors to employment, economic, and export growth. Now, if we want to encourage the Nigerian youth to channel their energy into this sector, it is important that we provide an enabling environment that will encourage them, because jobs are not really many out there. So, and then we see many youths getting involved in this sector. So it's very key that an enabling environment that will make young businessmen thrive in this sector be provided. And such enabling environments could include, stable electricity, internet facility, tax reliefs. We offer them loans. So there are so many of such stuff that would help, that would encourage youth to engage in this sector. You know, we recently we had a glimpse into what some Nigerians, some investors rather, what they face in the Nigerian terrain by the incidents of we recently had that ShopRite wants to withdraw their business. That just gives us a glimpse into what some of these investors face in the Nigerian terrain. So I believe if we can put the enabling environment into place, we will be able to engage our youth in this aspect. Then let me also talk about provision of free and quality education and vocational training. The truth of the matter is, many of the Nigerian youths that engage in in armed conflicts, they come from rural areas or places where the level of development is very low. Some of them are uneducated, and as the popular saying goes, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if we want to engage these youth, it is important that we target the governments and the relevant stakeholders. It is important that they target what's it called? They create free and quality education to states. They target those states with an influx of violent youth, and then they provide them with free and quality education that can get them engaged. What this does is to allow them to become self-reliant. And then also, let an example of the impact of not providing this is visible in the Niger Delta militancy. The youth of that place arose. They became violent because they felt that they had been sidelined. They felt that the government had cheated them, despite the fact that Niger Delta, it's a region it's actually an oil producing region. And then despite the fact that it's an oil producing region, the level of development in that region is very is very minimal, as in it's very appalling. So as a result of this, they felt resorting to violence might just be their own way of expressing themselves. And that is why I would also like to chip in this, still on the issue of providing quality education and all that, still on the issue of education. I like to encourage that we begin an early childhood education on SDGs. It is important that we take SDGs. We should start training the younger generations on what SDG is all about. You know, the goals. Let them know that, oh, you had to uphold the peace of your nation. When we start teaching the younger generation at an age, what it does is it's you know, they grow up with that understanding, knowing all the necessary stuff that they need to know about SDGs. It's inculcating them the values, and then when they grow up, it will become difficult for them to disrupt the peace of the nation, because they have known all these things, and you know, they have been taught their civic responsibilities, their rights, and all that. Also, I would also like to mention that there is also a need for us to introduce entrepreneurship into the educational system of Nigeria. You know, nowadays, a lot of people feel once they go to school, then the job is there. But reality has shown us that once you come out there, the traditional jobs, so to speak, are no longer very much available. So sometimes people have to fall back on the skills that they have acquired. So if we can make entrepreneurship the part of our educational system, you know, the youth they are empowered when they come out there and the job does not come immediately. They have something to fall back on. So also, still on education, transforming scientific ideas into innovation is very important. Nowadays, we often hear of some Nigerians developing one thing or the other, but you know, sometimes these ideas, they don't have that enabling environment to perfect it, and then we don't hear about it again. So if we can create such environment that allows scientific ideas to be transformed into innovations, I believe also it can engage the Nigerian youth, and we can be able to tap into the skills and the energy that they have. Let me also mention political sector. Political sector is very important. The Nigerian youth have a role in political education, mobilization, and sensitization of citizens. And it is important that we start reorienting our youth on their civic responsibility. It is not just enough for them to have a card and go and vote. We want them also to engage politics by contesting for elective, for all these political posts and all that. Instead of
What do you want?
hello, can I go on?
Yes, please go on.
Okay, so instead of active participation in politics, what we have
Really?
that is common
And
among
what
the
happened to you?
Nigerians. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please go on. I think someone is speaking in the background. We'll try to mute the person. Just go
What's the
ahead.
correct name?
Okay, thank you. Now, instead of active participation in politics, what we have that is prevalent among Nigerian youth is that's the fact that they just go out and they vote and everything. So I believe if we can engage these youth, if we can reorient them on the importance of also contesting for elections, we will be able to engage their physical strength, their intellectual prowess, and all that. And also, another thing that is common in Nigeria, you know, they just use them for maybe thuggery, theft of ballot boxes. You know, those are the vices that is common when we talk about politics in Nigeria. So if instead of disrupting the peace of nation, if we engage these youth and we encourage them to participate, such energy that they usually use work, a form of advocacy, is the one that was held in Anambra, I think Anambra in 2017, and that was during it was during the governorship election of 2017, and it was tagged "Vote Not Fight" campaign. You know, it was a collaboration of Two-Face Idibia Foundation and then the Young Stars Development Initiative and the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth, and Development. So another welcome development in the political terrain in Nigeria is the recently passed law, which is known as the Not Too Young to Vote law of 2018. Excuse me. The bill was actually passed into law due to the coalited efforts of civil society organizations who embarked on a targeted advocacy with the two legislative chambers and the office of the vice president. These people, they mobilized youth, and then with them, they conducted rallies, peace walks, they had press conferences, live radio programs, and all that. And they did all these things in Abuja and other state capitals until that bill was actually passed into law. This advocacy is an area where we can actually engage the Nigerian youth until that bill was passed into law. And after they had achieved that was when they knew they had achieved that, and it was something to be proud of. Now, what did that law do? That law actually came, an important aspect of that law was the fact that it amended some sections of the 1999 Constitution, which could not allow youth to contest for political posts. Section 65, 106, and some other sections were amended to allow for eligibility of youth to contest for political posts. For the post of president, I think it was amended from 40 to 30 years. Governorship, once you are 35, once you are 30, instead of before that had 35 years. Once you are 30 and above, you can actually go for such a position. House of Rep was amended from 30 to 25 years. State House of Rep from 30 to 25, and so on and so forth. Now, as a result of this law, which is actually a welcome development, Nigerian youth can now take up such political posts. They no longer have that excuse. Well, as much as this new is very good, it's still very important for us to understand that Nigerian youth still face certain hurdles when it comes to still taking up all these positions. All do such like the fact that cost of obtaining political form is very high. It's still very much high. And then we have the problem of godfatherism. So there are so many that we use. Start training our Nigerian youths to deliver. They will actually the throne at a very, she was already being, because the father had no surviving and so she was the next person, and she was already being groomed for that position. And despite the fact that the father died earlier than him envisaged, Queen Elizabeth could perform very well because when her father died, she assumed the responsibility. She could perform very well because she had been have such in place positions. I believe that it would also help them, it will build confidence in them, and to help them to be able to perform and deliver effectively. The last is information and communication technology. Information and communication. This is another field. Information and youth can actually channel their energy, and I believe that if they do this, it will produce massive results. It includes, television, internet, mobile phones, computers, so on. And this the ICT is actually one of the, let me say, ICT is an area, a platform that has been engaged already. It has been engaged by some people, some notable people like Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook. he has engaged it positively. We also know when we talk about ICT, like I said earlier, it also includes TV show, a popular TV series, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Because I believe ICT is a major driver of the Nigerian. I mean, like I was saying, not to divert, is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? This was a very popular show that engaged Nigerian and encouraged to learn. It exposed them to learning. So that's just an aspect of high city. But the sad thing is that Nigerian youths have some Nigerian youths have engaged this platform negatively. And just like the recent case of Osh Poppy had, you know, Osh Poppy was arrested for cybercrime, otherwise known as this cyber fraud, otherwise known as Yahoo Yahoo. This was a man that had a follower of about 2.4 million on Instagram, and he was alleged to have defrauded people, I think, to the tune of about 168 billion thereabouts, also 168 billion naira, and all that. Also, there was also the case of Evictor's Obi that happened in 2019. Evictor's Obi was a man that portrayed himself prior to his arrest. He portrayed himself as the CEO of Evictor's group and as a businessman who was interested in oil and gas and the likes, until he was arrested. He even qualified. He was even made. He qualified as a honoree of Forbes, this Africa Forbes 30 under 30, until he was arrested and people got to know that this man was engaged in cyber fraud. So imagine now these cyber crimes that we're talking about. It requires a lot of diligence, creativity, and even attention to details. Imagine if these people had channeled their energy towards the productive course, like probably maybe let's say developing an app that will help solve a problem. But the sad thing about this is that they chose to engage ICT negatively, and we see the result. So that's why it's also good. Also, I would also like to encourage that we use the social media platform. The social media platform, the ICT should be used to also praise youth and leaders. Those that are doing very well in their spheres of influence, and then people that we do not know their source of wealth is questionable. We should stop celebrating them. So I believe if the Nigerian youth can engage, if we can engage, they can engage the ICT sector. There is a lot of potentials in information and communication technology for the Nigerian youth. If they can engage it positively, the much envisaged nationwide development will become a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barrister Funke. Very grateful for your insightful presentation. I would just at this point like to welcome Dr. Demola. I think Dr. Demola has joined us. So we'd like him to have his presentation. Dr. Demola, please, can you share your video? He is an associate professor at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies at Afero-Babalola University at Ekiti in Ekiti State. So he's going to be speaking to us. He reframed his topic. I would have loved to talk about his topic, but he rephrased it. So I would like him to do the introduction. So for the next 30 minutes, we are going to be listening to Dr. Demola before we have the question and answer. I see that some questions and answers are already popping up. Some people have also made comments. We have a segment for that, about 40 minutes. Because we want to make the most of the time we have, let's just take the last presentation now while we focus on the question and answer session afterwards. So Dr. Demola, you are welcome to come on board, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yeni, for the invite, and the organizers. I really appreciate your extending the invitation to me to talk on this very, very important topic. I'm sorry for joining a little bit late. The problem was that I thought the link sent to me, I didn't know it is a registration link. I thought it was the main Zoom meeting link. So that's why I couldn't join early enough. And I really thank the first speaker for coming in to save the day. Thank you, Madam Olufunke Ajay Bomogun. I hope I'm correct. And thank you for your wonderful and passionate presentation. I really gained a lot. You see, the issue of youth and sustainable development goals is a very topical issue for many reasons. For instance, the world population, especially African population, has more of youth. So the youth are in power in reality. And if the SDGs will work, it depends largely on the youth. So I thank the organizers for putting this together. Mr. Oyeniyi, probably you need to enable me to share my screen. I have a very brief PowerPoint.
You can go ahead and share your screen, sir.
It's telling me post disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, really? So please just hold on a little and we'll try to resolve that. Let me talk to the admin to assist us in that regard.
Okay. So I tinkered a little with the topic.
Yeah, maybe try now.
Okay, let me try. Oh, thank you. Okay, can we see my screen now?
Yes, your screen is visible. We can see. Can you fit to size the entire screen so that at the lower right hand corner, at the lower right hand corner, extreme right. Oh, okay.
It's perfect.
Oh, perfect. Now. Perfect.
Yes. Thank you very much. So I just tinkered a little with the topic given to me. And what I have now is adopting SDG 16 as a peace building mandate for the Nigerian youth. It's essentially the same thing. And what it means is that I am seeing SDG 16 as a mandate for Nigerian youth to build peace in our country. Incidentally, I'm a co-chairholder of UNESCO Chair on Peace and Citizenship, and peace building is one of my areas of expertise. So, a quick overview. I'll give a little background, and then I will answer the question, why youth? Why do we give this mandate to youth? Why do youths have this mandate? And a quick brief one on SDG 16 itself. Then there are key words that we need to go over, like peace building, justice, strong institutions, and then I propose a framework of engagement, that is a framework by which youths can deliver on their mandate. And luckily for me, the first speaker touched on it, and that is active citizenship, youth getting involved. You see, the age of give me is gone. This is the age of giving to the society. And it is in the best interest of the youth to do exactly that. Okay, as a way of background, for the youth, if the youth must fulfill this mandate that we say is in SDG 16, the mandate to build peace, justice, and strong institutions, youth need to understand why they are the best choice for that. 2, youth need to understand the SDG. And 3, youth must have a framework for engagement. So it's around these 3 main things that I've built my presentation. So why youth? Youth constitute the highest percentage of the population. Africa has the largest number of youth globally compared to other continents. In fact, a friend wrote a book called Youthnomics, and the central message of the book is that the youth, they are the current economics because of their population. The world is coming to Africa to mine our youth population because we have relatively younger population than the rest of the world. So that is the first reason youth are called upon to take on this mandate. Two, all things being equal, youth, that is people under 30s, they will live longer than people over 30. That is all things being equal. I mean, so they have a longer time to stay in the system. So it is in their interest to ensure that the system is better. Three, older generations no longer have what it takes to confront new problems. Older generations are still stuck with their old way of doing things. I saw a video on WhatsApp yesterday I think it's from Mo Ibrahim Foundation. And this old man was saying that it is only in Africa that we have 70, 90-year-old people as our leaders. And he asked the question, where are they leading us to? Is it to the grave? Yes, these are people already looking at their graves. Also, 3 days ago, I saw a short clip by Barack Obama calling on American youth to come on board and save America, that the older generations are just too old and many of them don't have the wherewithal. So Nigerian youth are being called upon because what they are looking for, their aspirations, the older generations cannot give them. Three, the youth are more physically stronger, they are more innovative, they are more creative because they are more open to new ideas, unlike the older generations. So, because of all this, the youth, they have a higher stake in the Nigerian society. And because of this, they have a higher duty or responsibility to make our society work. I don't need to say that all the 17 or all the other 16 goals cannot thrive if there is no environment that is peaceful. If the environment is not peaceful, nothing good develops in war, really. Most societies, they have their golden era at peaceful times, at the time of peace, because there cannot be peace without development, and there cannot be development without peace. There must be environments of peace for good things to thrive. So that is why I say that it is in the best interest and the responsibility of youth to ensure that we build sustainable peace. So what is the SDG 16? Full rendition, it reads, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. Provide access to justice for all and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. However, the organizers of the program have asked me to limit it to peace building. Sustainable Development Goal 16 has three main things: peace, justice, and strong institutions. So now, focusing on promoting peaceful society, a society that has peace, it means we want to build new and strengthen old infrastructure and capacities for peace. As a society, we have capacities for peace in every community. We have infrastructure for peace. To build peace, we need to strengthen old ones, we need to build new ones, we need to identify the existing infrastructure. And for us to be able to do that, we need to understand basic concepts, basic ideas such as peace, negative peace, positive peace, sustainable peace, culture of peace, and peace building. And that is what I intend to do. As I said, the paradigm of give me, give me, give me has gone. In fact, the late president of United States, Kennedy, captured it very well when he said, young man, do not ask for what your country can do for you, ask for what you can do for your country. That is so apt. If the youth, Nigerian youth, will deliver on this mandate. Each youth, we need to ask ourselves, what you are passionate about in our immediate community. Like the first speaker said, sometimes you don't need to occupy an elected position to bring about the necessary change. You don't need to be in the Senate. You don't need to be the president. In your immediate environment, there are things you can change. What are those things you're passionate about? What are the concrete things you can do about this, either alone or with others? It is a call of duty. Once youth are armed with a clear vision of the desired future, they must now work tirelessly to realize this dream, starting from their local environment, their immediate vicinity. So I said active citizenship, as I said earlier, is the framework of engagement. It's a framework that youth can adopt in order to engage, in order to fulfill this mandate. And before I go into details later, briefly, active citizenship involves individuals getting involved in public life and affairs at local, national, or international level. Active citizenship is basically being involved, coming on board on your community's affairs because you realize that this is your heritage and turning that heritage into a wonderland. It is your duty to create a wonderland out of whatever chaos you have in that environment. Active citizenship is youth stopping to stand on the sideline and asking for kickbacks, crumbs from politicians. Active citizenship is making things happen for others, creating opportunities you never had for other people. Now, we said earlier that we need to build our capacities and competencies for peace building if we must deliver on the mandate. The popular saying is that you cannot give what you don't have. So we need to learn the ABCs of peace building. We need to understand those concepts I identified earlier. I discussed all this in one of my books I titled Peace for All, Empowering Nigerians for a Culture of Peace. I wrote the book in 2009. And I discussed, the main focus of the book is for every Nigerian citizen to become an agent of peace. How to do it. From learning about the basic concepts to planning interventions at various levels to promote peace. Starting with yourself, starting with being at peace, being a peaceful person, to promoting peace in a framework of a culture of peace. So, this is not a lecture, so I wouldn't be giving definitions and all sorts, too many of that. Peace. For us to understand peace and to appreciate peace, we need to understand conflict, violence, their causes, nature, dynamics, and their types. And a youth that wants to build peace consciously must build his or her knowledge in this area. Because of the time given to me, I won't go into the definition of conflict, of violence, and all sorts for now. There are so many materials online, and I also have so many that one can use for this, to acquire this knowledge. But it is important that we know that we cannot take peace for granted. We've done that, humanities have done that for too long. Now, for you to be able to contribute positively to peace building, you've got to learn about it, starting with understanding conflict, understanding violence, understanding the kind of conflict that is germane to your own locality, because there are conflicts that are germane to different regions in Nigeria. In some regions, what we usually have is ethno-religious conflict. In some areas, what we have is resource-based. In some areas, we have political. You've got to understand the prevalent conflict in your area. I've got to understand the idea of conflict transformation. It's bigger than conflict resolution. It's about transforming conflict. It's about conflict transformation. Is about taking advantage of the creative energy provided by conflict to create a desired future. So you've got to understand all these for us to understand peace. Peace is multidimensional. It means different things to different people, but it is essentially multidimensional. We have the dimension of within a person, and that is what we refer to as inner peace or peace within you. We have the dimension of peace that describes peace between individuals, that describe relationship between individuals. And we have the dimension of peace, the second dimension, peace between or among, describe relations between individuals or groups. The third dimension talks about peace within violence or peace after violence. For instance, when they say there is ceasefire, that's a kind of peace. So I just gave this very brief introduction to peace for us to know that you cannot assume that you know about peace if you have not studied it. The study of peace as an academic discipline, relatively is so recent, relatively speaking. And that is because humanities for centuries, for millennia, we took peace for granted. We've been learning about so many other things, but forgetting that most of these other things that will promote our lives, development, technology, they cannot happen outside the environment characterized by peace. So a youth, a Nigerian youth that wants to build peace as a mandate of SDG 16 must learn about peace. One of the things you will come across when you learn about peace is that we have what we call negative peace and positive peace. Negative peace, the example I gave earlier, ceasefire is an example of negative peace. Negative peace is not bad peace, but it connotes the absence of war, organized military hostilities, or direct interpersonal or intergroup violence. It is negative because the causes of conflict remained ignored. When Party A and Party B in armed conflict, when the UN comes in and says ceasefire, the UN needs the ceasefire before they can address the issues. But the ceasefire itself, yes, journalists, reporters will say there is now peace, there is peace, but that peace is negative. If you don't study peace, you won't understand that differentiation. However, we have positive peace, which not only depict the absence of war and direct violence, but also includes social justice. In positive peace, we have negative peace, and we have social justice. We address the causes of conflict. Also, we build capacity and institution to manage our conflict in a non-violent way. Positive peace is what we also call durable or sustainable peace. So, in sustainable peace, it is peace with inherent justice, peace with absence of violence, peace that does not allow unjust system to thrive, peace that recognizes the equality of rights of all, peace that does not harbor systematic or systemic oppression and injustice. And this is the kind of peace we want to build through the SDG 16. This is the kind of peace we have the mandate to build. Now, having come this far, we need to understand what we call culture of peace. Humanities, we are all groomed and brought up in the culture of violence and war. However, around in 1985, thereabout, the world realized that we need to evolve another culture to supplant the culture of war and violence. And that is when we started talking about the culture of peace. And UNESCO was at the forefront of this, culture when it came up with the definition of the culture of peace as a set of ethical and aesthetic values, habits and customs, attitudes toward others, forms of behavior and ways of life that draw on and express respect for life and the dignity and human rights of individuals, rejection of violence, recognition of equal rights for men and women, support for the principles of democracy, freedom, justice, solidarity, tolerance, the acceptance of differences, and so on and so forth. And the UN adopted this idea, this culture of peace idea, and they've supported it with a lot of programs. From 2000, year 2000 was declared the year of non-violence and culture of peace for the children of the world. The decade 2001 to 2010 was declared the decade of the culture of non-violence and peace. So there is a whole literature, there's a whole program hinged on promoting the culture of peace. A Nigerian youth that will deliver on the mandate to build peace in Nigeria must be familiar with this idea, with this program. There's a program of action on the culture of peace. There's also the UN Declaration on the culture of peace and non-violence. Okay, now we come to peace building itself. The term was coined by Joan Galton in 1975 when he wrote on the 3 dimensions of peace: peacemaking, peacekeeping, and peace building. But the term has been expanded. Originally, it was conceived within the context of post-conflict recovery, effort to promote reconciliation and reconstruction. But nowadays, it has been expanded in scope to include everything that will make sustainable peace possible, everything that will strengthen and increase the likelihood of peace or peaceful coexistence in our society, including things like humanitarian relief, protection of human rights, ensuring security, and so on and so forth. So, peace building is about building sustainable peace. It emphasizes relationships and participation. So in building peace, there are 4 main responsibilities. 1, avoiding exacerbating conflict. 2, avoiding undermining existing peace. 3, transforming conflict. And 4, strengthening peace. Peace building activities generally fall within these 4 major responsibilities. And when we build peace, we do it at 4 levels: at the personal level, relational level, structural level, and cultural level. Peace building, in building peace, we must be aware that our experience, our society is complex and multi-dimensional. And each peace builder will identify which of the dimension she or he wants to come in. The key in peace building lies in the relationship of the involved parties. With all that, the term encompasses are the psychological, spiritual, social, economic, political, and military levels. It involves cultivating an infrastructure, building capacity for peace. Peace building is not only about ending something, it's about building something also, a desired future. So, that is that about peace building. I have some other notes for those who are interested in going into greater detail. So, it involves creating structures, institutions to promote sustainable peace by addressing the root causes of violence or violent conflict. It involves supporting indigenous capacities for peace management and conflict resolution. It involves constructing the defenses for peace in the minds of the people. Like the UNESCO Charter says, just as war starts in the minds of men, so also the defenses for peace must be built in their minds. The responsibilities lies with each of us. Says further, the same species that invented war can invent peace. In other words, each of us, we have the capacity to invent peace, to build the defenses of peace in the minds of our people. All the things we complain about nowadays, talk about Boko Haram, the terrorism thing, and all sorts, corruption, they start in the minds of men. So, building peace involves constructing the defenses for peace in the minds of men. It involves cultivating peace. It involves promoting the culture of peace. Okay, I said earlier that we need a framework of engagement, and I briefly introduced us to it as active in citizenship. I want to elaborate a little on it. Active citizenship, we look at it in two lights now, as one, what people do, and two, as motivations. The first part is a narrower view of active citizenship. When we see active citizenship as what people do, we see it as civil participation, civic engagement, but more importantly, volunteering activities. Civil participation is what people do when they get involved with each other to pursue their own goals and interests, such as being part of resident associations, sports clubs, faith groups. Civic engagement, on the other hand, is a more formal engagement with public affairs. When citizens participate in things like governance, being involved in formal associations, and so on and so forth. But however, majority of citizens, they are involved in the third aspect, in volunteering for one thing or the other. Sometimes you don't recognize these things as volunteering, but I mean, that is what these things are. Mostly these things are unpaid for. Things you do to promote your community and beyond. Okay, now active citizenship as what motivates people, as people's motivation, is a broader view of active citizenship. The citizen motivated by the sense of personal responsibility. Nigerian youth must adopt this without neglecting the first one, the first way of looking at active citizenship. They must be motivated by sense of personal responsibility. I've given us the reason why youth should deliver on this mandate. So each Nigerian youth should take this upon herself or himself. They should see it as a responsibility because, as I said earlier, the present and the future is theirs. Citizens recognize the importance of taking part in government elections. Big Brother Africa, Nigerian youth will use their money to vote. How many people voted in Big Brother Nigerian, Big Brother Africa? We hear 179 million, 100 and something million votes. How many youth go for election? Not up to 10 million. Majority of Nigerian voters are older people. Nigerian youth must be motivated by a sense of responsibility to participate in elections. They will also become increasingly aware of their rights, individual rights of citizenship, as well as the responsibility that this places on every adult. Many times we are more conscious of our rights. I know my rights, yes, but what about your responsibilities? Youth, because they have the highest stake in the society, must also be aware of their responsibilities because they are adults. Two, the citizen motivated by participating in activities in their communities. Youth must also be engaged in their communities. They must, when this happens, citizens are increasingly involved in local activities and groups. Some youth are more involved in European championships and things like that are happening outside Nigeria more than what is happening in their neighborhood, in their community, in their local government. Youth must seek to learn more about participatory structures and associated community rights. There are structures in our neighborhood, in our community, in our local government that we can identify with, that can help us to participate in what is going on in society. And youth must learn to actively engage with those structures. Thirdly, the citizen motivated by justice and fairness. Justice-oriented citizens who seek to develop a high level of awareness of collective rights and of collective political and social responsibility. In other words, Nigerian youth, to deliver on SDG 16, they must have this motivation for justice and fairness, motivation for collective rights and collective political and social responsibility. They must also participate within groups, taking responsibility for engaging with issues of social justice and equality. You see, like I said, the era of sit down dey look, the era of give me is gone. We are being led, sorry to say, most African countries are being led by people who are looking at their graves. And we too, most of us are just comfortable getting crumbs from them when we should be at the forefront, leading, deciding, asking questions. So youth motivated by justice and fairness will also promote social solidarity and justice as appropriate. So that is active citizenship for us. So far, we have looked at why youth must be involved, why the mandate rests squarely on youth, how youth need to build their capacities and competencies to deliver on this mandate, and also the framework
Hello, Dr.
for
Kennedy.
delivering on this mandate.
Hello, Dr. Kennedy.
Yes, sir.
Please, can you try to wrap up in the next few minutes? We are running short of time.
Okay, I'm already done.
Maybe the
in
next
conclusion,
minute, because we still
Nigerian youth have a mandate in SDG 16 to build peace, because the present and the future are theirs, their primary stakeholders. Also, they have the advantage of age, strength, population, innovation, and creativity. But to be able to deliver on this mandate, they need to learn about peace, conflict, violence, conflict transformation, and peace building. Once they have built this knowledge and competencies in requisite areas, they must now adopt the framework of active citizenship to deliver on their mandate. Nigerian youth have the opportunity and responsibility to deliver on this mandate. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akinyuade. We appreciate you. Can you kindly exit your or stop sharing your screen?
Okay, I'll do that.
I guess you're trying to convince some of us to go and start a course in peace building because it took so much time, but we appreciate that all the same. We also want to appreciate Barrister Ajibomogun. She really did justice to the work assigned to her, to the role rather assigned to her. So we have a couple of questions that have been asked already. I'll just go ahead and direct some of those questions to both of you, either to Barrister Ajibomogun or to Dr. Akinyuade. Some other persons may also want to ask their questions live, but let's go to the ones that are already available. The first question I have here with me says, how do we engage to achieve SDG 16? I don't know which of you would like to answer the question, but maybe I should read two more questions. I think this question was directed to Barrister Ajibomogun. Someone requested for the definition of a youth. The person said he would like to jot it down. So what's the definition of a youth? So I think both of you can just try and address those initial questions we have. So for Dr. Akinyuade, how do we engage to achieve SDG 16? And then for Barrister Ajibomogun, please, could you help us by defining again what a youth means? Thank you.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Much so, very much so, we can.
Okay. I earlier mentioned, I stated some laws that define youth, but for the purpose of emphasis, let me say that a youth is youth is a period between childhood and adulthood. And I mentioned that according to the United Nations, they define youth to be those that fall within the age category of 15 to 24. And that the Nigerian National Youth Policy of 2009 defined youth to be those that fall within the age range of 18 to 35. And I mentioned particularly that for the purpose of this discussion, I'll be adopting the Nigerian National Youth Policy of 2009's definition. So I don't know if that has answered your question. It is that period between between childhood and adulthood. And I also emphasize that being a youth, that is just a numerical way of defining it. As some people have said, being a youth is not necessarily a function of age. That is not just the age factor, but you having that mindset, having the attributes of the youth, which I mentioned some of them, I mentioned creativity, being ambitious, being having a positive mindset and all that. So that's the definition of the youth. But if we are looking at it strictly by the law, the provisions of the law, it's then the definition given by the Nigerian National Policy, Youth Policy, is suffices. So that's age 18 to 35. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So there are quite a number of questions, some of which are similar, but I would like to direct the one on SDG 16 to Dr. Akinyuade. So someone is saying, how can we engage? There are similar such questions. So for example, there's a question on how youths can be well positioned to act strategically to achieve SDG 16, and then what are recommendations for policymakers, educators, and youth in peace building and the realization of the SDGs. So how can we weave a thread around this?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. I elaborated much on how to engage in my presentation, and that is, first of all, acquire knowledge. You see, a medical doctor who is or a health worker who is desirous of performing operations successfully on a victim must know how else it will do more harm than good. You see, SDG is everywhere. NGOs are everywhere. But how many people really know what they are doing? SDG 16 is about peace, justice, and strong institutions. Do you understand these things? How much knowledge do we have there? So to engage, first, acquire knowledge, build competencies, and then start from your locality. Don't start by wanting to become the United Nations Secretary General. No. Or whatever, or government, whatever. If you understand those concepts very well, you'll be able to see opportunities to engage, starting from your community. As simple as asking your counselor some questions, as simple as going to a local government secretariat to ask questions, as simple as writing letters. You see, you are engaging. That's why I said at the beginning that find something you are passionate about, because if you are not passionate about an issue and you start on it, you will soon run out of steam. There are so many issues that fall within peace building. Yours may be child rights. You may want to do gender. You may want to do good governance. Study on it. Then start from your community. When you study on it, you also identify individuals and groups within your local areas or close by that you can network with, that you can build synergies with. So that is the way we can start engaging with the SDGs. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much once again. There are two questions I would quickly like to respond to. Someone has asked that he would like to volunteer with SDSN Nigeria in the area of peace building. For that individual, I would just like to advise the person to shoot us a mail. So the mail is this: sdsnnigeria@gmail.com. I'll say that again: sdsnnigeria@gmail.com. I'll type that in the chat box. So you will just shoot us a mail and then we'll take the conversation forward. And then someone asked a question that can those with O-level certificates be part of Empower? The answer to that question is yes. However, there are some compacts of the Empower that O-level certificate holders may not be able to feature in, such as health and tech. But for others, creative, for example, Empower Creative, Empower Build. I don't know of the others, but I know of these two. Those with O-level certificates can engage in those. The next questions I would like to respond to are two. Someone said, how can we make SDG 8 better, and how can we invest in them and invest in it, sorry. And SDG 8 just talks about decent work and economic growth. I don't know which of our speakers would like to attend to that particular question, but let me just take the second question and then we can decide on who will address the question. So the second question is this: how can young people, especially NGOs, influence policy change through lobbying and following through till there's actualization and implementation? I'll take that question again. It's actually in the chat box, so I don't need to go by it again. So for the question that is shown in the chat box and the one I just said, that's SDG 8, how can we address? Maybe I should direct SDG 8 to Barrister Ajebomogun, or which would she like? She could pick either of the two she wants to address. Barrister Ajebomogun, are you there, please? It appears you are muted.
Please, can you repeat? I didn't get the question.
Okay. You are muted. Let me try and unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Okay, yeah, I said that. Can you repeat the first question?
Okay, the first question is talking about how to make SDG 8 better and to invest in it. And SDG 8 is talking about decent work and economic growth.
How to make it better and invest in it?
Yes.
Okay, let me mention that one key area that we can invest in SDG. Like one of the goals is even talks about global partnership of towards SDG. And what this entails has to do with international bodies coming together to try and assist one another to be able to achieve the goals. Take for instance, economies like countries that are not yet developed. You know, developed countries can assist countries that are not yet developed with financial aids, for instance, and with that kind of assistance, they can construct schools, construct infrastructure like health facilities, schools, and even training centers that can engage some of these youth. So it's very important, and also awareness, like I mentioned earlier. Awareness is also very key. And I know I stress the importance of early childhood education. If SDG, if we want to make it better and we want the goals to be actualized, then it is important that people start becoming aware of what the goals are. Some people don't even know. I bet with you that if you go to some places, some people don't even know about SDGs. So and there are some people that when they come to the awareness of what it is all about. I'm talking about those that have the financial wherewithal, like private investors, business organizations, scientific bodies, and all that. You know, if we go to such bodies, like if you go and then they become aware of what this is all about, some of them can actually give into into the project. And then international, the major point here is global partnership. We need developed countries to assist the underdeveloped country in terms of finance, because the major problem in Nigeria is actually capital. You know, we cannot overstress the Nigerian government. It's not something that the Nigerian government involve some other people to also put ancestry bodies so that they can provide the necessary infrastructures that would engage them. Any power projects is something that takes a lot of money. Building schools requires money. Building training centers that would train these people requires money. So I think I would like to come from the aspect of capital. That is the major thing that we also need, and then awareness. So if we have all these things in place, I believe many and the necessary enabling environments that will allow us to actualize these goals would have been put in place. Imagine if there is an internet facility, uninterrupted power supply, a lot of things would be actualized. So I believe if we want to bring SDG into reality, if we really want to actualize these goals, we need support, we need partnership, we need awareness to be created on all levels. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barrister Jebomo. We appreciate you for that. Just before Dr. Akinde responds to the question, someone has requested for the slides, sir. So we don't know if you would appreciate, we don't know if you would oblige us of that. Oh, okay, thank you so much.
Of course, I will send it to your email.
Oh, okay, so I cannot share with, okay, so I've dropped the email of the network, sdsnnigeria@gmail.com. So I would appreciate if all of us can just shoot a mail, for the attendees, so that we share the PowerPoint presentation as well as the video. The link to the video will be shared with us because we'll upload on our YouTube channel. So that will be shared with us. So over to you, sir, to respond to the question.
Okay, we're still talking about how you can engage.
I asked two questions. The first one I asked had to do with decent work and economic growth. That how can we make that particular SDG better and invest in it, which Barrister Jebomo has responded to. The second question, I think I even lost track of that question. Let me try and scroll through it again. Just a few seconds and we'll read it out. I seem not to be able to find it now. So let me not take too much. I'll come back to that question. But
Okay.
how about going to this? And I think this is a good one. The person is highlighting the role of parenting. I think Barrister Jigomogwan alluded to that in the course of our presentation. Said poor parenting is one of the biggest issues in peace building. The person says so many things, but I don't want to dwell too much on that. But the question is this, that how do we educate people to properly train their children? I think there's also a second question still on that. That how do we get people to realize that there's a consequence for their actions, which could result in damage in their offsprings and then could result to deformed adults, so to speak. The person framed it in that way. I just try to rephrase. So can you try to respond to that question, sir?
Okay, sir, thank you. Barista's initial response made us to forget the other question because she just carried all of us away. Okay, thank you for that. You see, how can we educate people? Just educate them. There are several mediums to do that, but mere educating people many times don't work. It's easy to do, but the outcome is not always that significant. People have been educated on how to raise their kids in churches, in mosques, every week. Yet some parents are still churning out bad children. Advocacy can be employed. Somebody mentioned lobbying in one of the questions the other time. Is one of the strategies for advocacy. If we want to do advocacy campaign on good parenting, on people knowing the consequence of their actions, although they already do, um, it will involve more than education. It involves things like creating awareness and several other things. But you see, maybe the main thing here is that how can we bring about behavioral changes in people, behavioral changes on certain issues. And that is why I was saying advocacy. You see, there's need for campaign, but we can't all every area. Sorry, we can't all do advocacy on every issue that borders on the SDG. That's why find what you are passionate about and begin to take practical steps. As you take practical steps, either through advocacy or whatever, you begin to build traction, you begin to build credibility. You see, as a teacher, I've been in the university system as a teacher for more than a decade. What we do most often is just talk in conferences, in symposia. We just talk, and we don't take much action. So, if we want to see results in certain areas as an individual, as a youth, you first of all build your knowledge in that area and begin to take practical steps. Government is good, but let's just forget about government for now. Yes, fantastic. Agencies, international donor agencies, but let's forget about them for now. The little we have, the little you have as a youth, put it to work. Let me give you a practical example from my personal experience. About 5 years ago, I began to get tired of all this talk. As an academic, you know that is what we do. Conferences, we abuse government, we abuse ourselves, we abuse people that are working, and then we go away. So I started saying to myself, I'd rather do than talk. I will talk after I've started doing something. So I have this passion for my village in Osun State, Kuta. Walking through the community one day, I found abandoned estates 13 bungalows with a hospital built about 20 years ago now, abandoned. Yeah, I can start writing letters to governments or to international donor agencies to bring money for us to renovate. I can do that for the next 10 years. I don't know when they will. But you know what I decided to do? First, I met with my local government chairman. I'm a teacher. I'm not a politician. I don't have excess money. But I met with him because I felt we can renovate this place and put it to better use. We can have SDGs here, SDG center here. We can have community development center here. So I met with him and the man agreed to clear that place, bushy area. He cleared the whole place and our agreement is that I will renovate this place and then I will lease it from the local government and I will put it to use as community development center. Friends, I do not expect money from anywhere. You know how I started this thing? I started the renovation last December. I started from my annual leave. They paid me annual leave last year, less than 200K. Went there, hired carpenter, changed this one, changed that one. Sometimes I get 90,000. Maybe from any area, training here and there, I'll put it, run back to my village. I'm renovating the buildings. I started talking to some youth, things you want to do there, free of charge, training. You may not be able to renovate an estate. Me too, I'm doing it by faith and with passion. Yours may be rehabilitating somebody in your community. So once you start doing things, you gain credibility and you can now influence people's behavior. You can change them because you are doing by example. Do you understand? So Nigerian youth, let's even assume you don't have any government. Let's assume you don't have any help from anywhere. Won't you find solutions to the problems in your vicinity? So that is how we bring about behavioral change and see results in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think we'll just take one or two more questions, or we read rather one or two more questions, and then it appeared one or two persons raised their hands. We'll give them the opportunity to speak and ask their questions, which we'll respond to. And then we'll have a recap by the National Coordinator of SDSN Youth Nigeria of what we've had since morning for the benefit of those that joined us late, and for all of us to have the key takeaways. So the question I was trying to remember the other time, I think I found it now. This is what it says. I think you've addressed it in parts, Dr. Akinwade. And this is what the question says. It says, how can young people, especially NGOs, influence policy change through lobbying and following through till actualization and implementation? And you touched a little bit on that, but you may want to say some other things. But please hang on a little. There's one more question that I would like to read. Someone is talking, that question has to do with the fact that those in the rural areas appear not to know what the SDGs is all about. So that how can we, I'm trying to locate the question now, but the person is trying to say that how can we, I think it has to do with advocacy in rural areas and youth, because we also have rural youth, we have urban youth. So some of the issues we've addressed, I think it appears to dwell more on urban youth. How about youth in rural areas? I think that's what the person is asking. So I don't know which of you will want to respond to which question. So I've asked two questions now. The first one having to do with policy change. The second one having to, how can policy, be developed that will drive the realization of SDGs, and how youth can be at the center of all of that. And then the second one, how rural youth can get to know more about the SDGs. Is what they know about that they can do anyway. So I don't know which of you will want to respond to that. Barrister Ajibomoko, are you there?
Ladies first.
Oh, okay, yes, please. Let's speak.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, please. We can. We can hear you. I think the network is breaking. We are not. The network is breaking. The network is breaking. We can't hear you very well.
Become able about help. Okay. Can you hear me properly now?
Oh yes, please. We can.
Hello.
Yes, we can. We can.
Okay. How can we take? If I got the question clearly, how can we take SDG to the rural areas?
Yes, please. Especially for rural youths. Yes.
Rural area become knowledgeable.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, I would like to emphasize for us, for them to become knowledgeable about this, it is important that a high level of problem of them not knowing about it is simply ignorance. And if they, what you don't know about, you might not be able to practice. If we take areas and we mobilize and some bodies and awareness, it will be the level of ignorance very reduced. So, and what do I mean by awareness? You know, awareness is we have to be able to adapt. When I say awareness, you must be able to adapt the kind of awareness that we are taking there. It should not just be just print flyers, or because some of these people cannot read, they cannot write. So we must come up with the kind of awareness that can adapt to their level of education. And by that, we could come up with dramas. Do you understand? We could come up with talks and all that. You know, having dramas, things that can capture their interest. And then for those that can read, then we can talk about flyers and all that. So I believe that awareness is the major way that we can do that. And also education. Schools, rural areas still have some schools. I don't even understand. So if we can also encourage, speak one-on-one to the teachers of these schools, let them know what SDG is all about, encourage them to also take it as part of their courses. It will bring about the necessary awareness. You know, it's not just for us to go there and mobilize some people and do cries and talk and organize dramas and all that. Those things very well can capture their interest. Sure, you understand? But I think more importantly, for the sustainability of that, is that we have some people, some bodies there that represents that will be able to communicate these SDGs. And if we cannot achieve that, then we can look at their educators, the teachers, and then liaise with them, let them understand the need for them to start teaching these children what SDG is all about. So I think I want to emphasize awareness. Awareness is the way that we can actually take SDGs to what's it called, to all those rural areas. And then infrastructure, I think I've mentioned so many other points as well in the course of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for Dr. Before I go ahead to Dr. Kinyade, at this juncture, I would like to appreciate all the participants who have waited for this long. I know it's a huge sacrifice having to sit in front of easy laptops or mobile devices for this length of time using our data and all of that. So we appreciate this. And so very quickly, can we just move on to Dr. Kinyade? Please, how can young people, especially NGOs, young NGOs, I believe, influence policy change through lobbying and following through till actualization? I think that has to do with M&E, monitoring and evaluation.
Yes, thank you very much. The person that has the question has also provided a partial answer. You see, lobbying is part of advocacy. Young NGOs can achieve their aim on whatever thing through advocacy. In advocacy, there is campaign, there's awareness creation, there's public education, and so on and so forth. Lobbying also is part of it. So the young NGO should get familiar with policy advocacy, how to do advocacy. And one of the critical elements of advocacy they will have to leverage on is the masses. If you can create awareness on an issue among the masses, and educate the masses by showing them cause and effect, how that thing is affecting them. And probably a policy solution or policy proposal for solving that problem will get people interested, and their followership, their interest in the issue will give you the leverage. Will give you the leverage. One of the things people do nowadays is to send around forms for people to sign concerning a particular issue so that you can tender this document somewhere. What they are trying to do is to say we have people's support on this issue. Many people are affected by it. So policymakers look at it. Sometimes when you educate people, you need to mobilize them physically in non-violent demonstrations. So the issue here is young NGOs, what they lack in experience and power and relative power, they can build by leveraging on the power of the masses. They can also do so by leveraging on the expertise of existing older NGOs. But for you to gain credibility, in order to secure the attention of older NGOs, you also as a young NGO, you must build your expert knowledge on that issue. And that involves policy analysis, the kind of the type we refer to as analysis for policy, whereby you identify the issue or social problem you are concerned with, and then you come up with policy proposal, a solution. Solution not from your head, really, but based on research. If your solution is evidence-based through research, you see, you can gain credibility. Data give us credibility. So when you go to an older NGO and say, on this particular issue, let's say female genital mutilation in this community, so percentage of girls are being mutilated every month or every year in this local government. When you come up with cold facts, people will take you serious. But if you just go to the older NGOs and you are just talking generally, yeah, I mean, without being specific, you're just wasting their time. They won't network with you. So you can use expertise on an issue to create awareness by educating the public and building on their power, and also networking with other NGOs. I think that's about it. So, like I said earlier, lobbying is just part of advocacy.
Thank you so much for the response. We are going to be moving on to the wrap-up session now, and I would like to invite the Network Youth Coordinator for SDSN Youth Nigeria in person of Mr. Ambali. However, just for 2 seconds, it appears someone is showing a raise of hand, Mr. Matthias Akpan. Could Mr. Ambali, please, could we just give him about 5 seconds for him to speak, to ask his question, please? Mr. Matthias, can you go ahead and speak, please? Mr. Matthias, you are presently muted, and I've unmuted you. So can you just go ahead to speak? All right, maybe you may want to type the question in the chat box because of time. We don't want to exceed the time we've allotted to this meeting. So let's have Mr. Ambali. Mr. Ambali, you're welcome on board, please.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you very much, sir.
Okay,
yes.
Great, fine. So I really appreciate our resource persons, starting from Dr. Demola and Barrister Olufunke. You've done a great job and been following since morning. Sorry, I couldn't connect earlier. It was due to some technical issues. So I want to appreciate all the attendees. You're highly appreciated, and calling on to drive the achievement of the
Mr. Ambali, we can't hear you. We can't hear you yet. We can't hear you yet, Mr. Ambali. Can you go ahead and speak? We're going to be uploading this on our YouTube channel. But beyond this, we want to see each and every one of us share our success stories of what we've done. I like one of the things that one of the speakers said. I'm not sure if that's Barrister Jibomo or Dr. Akinwade, but one of you made mention of the fact that we should work, and it's after work we should now be bold enough to talk about what we've done. It shouldn't just be about talk. Talk is good, but then, as I say, talk is sometimes cheap. So we want to ensure that what we are saying is backed up with everything. We do things and showcase those things for others and also replicate wherever they find themselves. Thanking also Andrija for hosting us. He's been the one who has been serving as the admin from New York. Andrija, thank you so much for staying all the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We really appreciate you. Would you like to say a word to everyone, because you've been mute all the while? Maybe you want to say something?
No, this was a wonderful conference and a workshop, and I really look forward to the next ones.
It's okay. Thank you so much once again. So everyone, we appreciate you and we look forward to engaging once again. Mr. Mbali would like to say something at this point. I think he's home. Okay, so Mr. Mbali, please unmute yourself and then speak, please.
Yes, I think. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Mr. Mbali, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry, and I have been online since, and it's just my turn to talk, and everything just went off, and it happens sometimes. So I'm really I really appreciate everyone, and like he said, starting from the director here, Professor Labo de Popola, the director Center for Sustainable Development, who is our host, Professor Larry Olani, and also the global youth coordinator. That's talking about Sam Loli. They've been doing a great job, and I really appreciate them. So let me reiterate the fact that this webinar was organized for people to know about the SDSN youth, the SDGs, and also a practical discussion. And that's why you've been seeing that all this while we've been taking questions and answers. And also, we want to devise a model for promoting the peace of activities which can hinder the peace among youths are happening in the country. But at SDSN, we always encourage ourselves to keep up with the flag of being a peaceful youth among us. The picture they are painting us about outside is not real. So I want to urge all around the country, and I will do that when we roll out our recordings via our YouTube channel. it will reach much more audience, and people will learn more about what we have been preaching at SDSN Youth. We are a non-governmental, a non-profit spread across the regions of the world, like Europe, America, gospel of SDGs. Someone raised the question earlier that the Bunke stated that it's about education, and I think SDSN have been doing, and we are urging you to, in one way or the other, part of your day activities should be promotion of the SDGs. The SDGs is for everybody, it's for the youth especially, and it's for the older ones too. Let them know that these are the SDGs is not molded in an unachievable manner. Everything has been defined, and the targets are there for individuals to grab. So I want to implore everyone to go out there and to let everybody know that Nigerian youth are peaceful and we are law abiding in one way or the other. And the SDSN youth Nigeria, we want to tell everybody that please keep up with the great work and keep preaching the gospel of the SDGs. Once again, I would like to appreciate Dr. Demola and Barrister Olufunke. You've really helped in breaking down all the issues around peace and the SDGs. So, like the takeaways, what they've told us about, I want everybody to use our energy in promoting peace and in achieving the SDGs. Once again, I thank you and I appreciate you, and I sincerely apologize for the breaking. And God bless you. Bye.
Bye, everyone. We appreciate you all. Thank you so much once again.
Bye.